We are just over 200 days until the start of the next college football season, and next season will be the start of a new era of college football, with conference realignment really changing the game, and also the start of the 12-team playoffs. And as this offseason moves along, we have to look at which teams will ultimately be the top contenders to make the first 12-team playoffs. And one team that could be a dark horse to make the playoffs, or even win the national championship, is the Ole Miss Rebels. And in this video, I wanted to talk about this Ole Miss team, and what the future of Ole Miss football looks like, and why I think they can be a very dangerous team next season. But before I get into this video, let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you will love this channel because we upload daily college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel, so definitely consider subscribing. But without further ado, let's get into the video. The Ole Miss Rebels have been around for over 100 years, dating back all the way to 1893. They have claimed 3 national championships back in 1959, 1960, and 1962. And they also had 6 conference championships from 1947 to 1963. Yeah, that's a really long time. And Ole Miss hasn't won a conference championship or a national championship since the early 1960s, which is around 60 years ago. And talking about a potential national title run for the Ole Miss Rebels in 2024 seems crazy to think about. And I really think if any Ole Miss team can get the job done, then it is definitely this team heading into 2024 and going forward. Because this is a really hungry team led by head coach Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin was one of those special coaches from the historical Alabama coaching staff back in 2015. That 2015 Alabama coaching staff had elite coaches like Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart, and a bunch of other coaches who are now coaching in a Power 5 conference. And a lot of the coaches out of that coaching staff have done a really good job at their own programs, now leading different teams. And Kirby Smart's just an example because he was the defensive coordinator at Alabama, but he now has 2 national titles at Georgia. But Lane Kiffin was also the offensive coordinator at Alabama, and he's already building a culture at Ole Miss, and really building a team that could definitely compete at a high level. Lane Kiffin has already coached 4 seasons at Ole Miss, and he has led them to a 34-15 record in those 4 seasons. But this past season, we really seen this Ole Miss team show a lot of improvement, as they went 11-2 and had a really good offense, which ranked in the top 3 of the SEC. But ultimately, their defense wasn't very great. It wasn't terrible, but it was more average. And when they played Georgia, they got completely outmatched and destroyed. Now, don't get me wrong, this Ole Miss team had a very good season in 2023, but they were not one of those elite teams. But if you erase that Georgia game, you'd say Ole Miss had a spectacular season. They had really good quality wins. They had a win against LSU in which they won 55-49, and they also beat a solid Texas A&M team. But nearing the end of the season, they beat Penn State in the Peach Bowl, in a game that I felt may have really been a breakout game for the Ole Miss Rebels. And they really dominated a team that had one of the best defenses in the country, and they beat Penn State 38-25 to end their season. And I know you can look at opt-outs and make up all kinds of excuses, but when you see players not opting out and choosing to actually play in games, I think it says something about the culture of that program and that team as a whole. And I think Ole Miss has a lot of positives going forward for them. And this bowl game meant a lot to this Ole Miss team, and they made a statement in that bowl win. So overall, it was a pretty good season from Ole Miss, and they probably played their best game in the last game of the season. But when they played the elite teams like Alabama and Georgia, they couldn't win. We all know that this team still had work to do, but this team was heading in the right direction. But to be one of those elite teams in the SEC who can compete for an SEC championship, you have to have an elite defense. And this was something that this Ole Miss team was lacking. But if you look at the moves Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss have made in the transfer portal, you'd say that there's a chance we see this defense show a lot of improvement heading into the 2024 college football season. Ole Miss hasn't just done good in the transfer portal, but they have completely destroyed the transfer portal, and nobody really comes close to them. They rank first in the transfer portal rankings, and they have brought in so many guys who can make a huge impact. And I wanted to talk about the players Lane Kiffin has brought in, and I also wanted to look at what this team will be returning next season, and why I think all the signs are pointing towards a breakout season for Ole Miss heading into the 12-team playoff era. They have brought in 17 players out of the transfer portal, 1 5-star, 7 4-stars, and 9 3-stars. There's a lot of teams who will just stack up on 3-star players and then add a couple 4-star players, but this Ole Miss team is bringing in players who could start right away, and they are bringing in high-caliber players on the defensive side. And one guy that stands out is 5-star defensive lineman Walter Nolan, who will be one of the best defensive linemen in the whole country. And he could possibly be a preseason All-American. The 6'4", 285-pounder could really make an impact right away. But then to back up Walter Nolan on the defensive line, Ole Miss brought in a highly rated 4-star edge rusher from Florida. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but his first name is Princely. And he's a future NFL draft pick and has potential to make a huge impact for this Ole Miss team, and he should definitely start. They also brought in 4-star linebacker Chris Paul Jr. from Arkansas, and he was an All-SEC freshman All-American in 2022, and he's another guy that could really make a huge impact on this team. But in the secondary, they have added 6 players. A couple of them were 4-stars, but they also brought in Trey Amos from Alabama, who should be a really good addition to the team. But all around, this is a defensive group that can really make an impact, and the offense should be really good again. And they did lose their starting running back Quinshaw Judkins, who is one of the best running backs in the country, but hopefully they can find a replacement at running back. But they did bring in a 4-star running back, Logan Diggs from LSU, and he could see the field a lot. But they also brought in wide receiver Antoine Wells from South Carolina, who is a highly rated 4-star and a top receiver out of the transfer portal. Lane Kiffin has done a really good job at picking up team needs for this Ole Miss team, and he has brought in a bunch of guys who will actually see the field. And this is a really fantastic transfer portal group, and I can't wait to see what this new look defense does. This is a team that could start the season ranked in the top 7 or even in the top 6. They will have quarterback Jackson Dart returning for his final season at Ole Miss, and he's possibly a dark horse to win the Heisman Trophy. He's a very solid quarterback who can do a little bit of everything. He played spectacular in the Peach Bowl against that dominant Penn State defense. They will have receivers Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins returning as well, and this offense could be even better, and the defense should definitely be better with the additions that they've brought in. But right now, Ole Miss does have the 7th best odds to win the 2025 National Championship, and there's so much hype surrounding this team, and they're getting the recognition that they do deserve, and rightfully so, because all it takes is a couple of additions to a team and a couple fixes to really help a team take that next step. And Ole Miss is really nearing the top of the mountain, and the sky may just be the limit for the Ole Miss Rebels going forward. People want to come to Ole Miss and play for Lane Kiffin. The vibe for this Ole Miss program is doing great, and Lane Kiffin may be a jokester, but he's definitely focused on building a relationship with his players and making this team a top contender. And I really think this Ole Miss team is not done led by Lane Kiffin. They have a lot more to do. And I also think this Ole Miss team is inches away from being a team who could really beat anybody in the country. And maybe they will end up winning the SEC, and they at least have to be in the conversation. Kirby Smart and Georgia didn't get to the top right away. They had to go through a lot of adversity, but there was a lot of hype around that team. But they just weren't quite at that elite level yet, until they were. And then out of nowhere, with the snap of your fingers, that Georgia team led by Kirby Smart won back-to-back national championships. It took them a couple years to get to the top, but Kirby Smart knew what it took to make his way to the top, and Lane Kiffin might be doing the same thing on Ole Miss. And the 5th season might just be the start of something bigger for this Ole Miss team, with Lane Kiffin leading the way. This is a team that hasn't really been one of those top teams in a very long time, but their time might be coming soon. And Lane Kiffin has the tools that he needs to become one of those elite coaches in college football. And I do believe Lane Kiffin is committed to this Ole Miss program. And if you're an Ole Miss fan, you have to be having high expectations heading into next season. And you have to be very excited about your team's future. And I may not be an Ole Miss fan, but I'm very excited to watch this team play, because they are going to be very good next season. Next season, college football is just going to be awesome. And I can't wait to watch all the new matchups, and the start of the 12-team playoffs will also be very fun. The on-campus site games will be amazing to watch. And maybe we could see this Ole Miss team hosting a playoff game in their home stadium. They do have a pretty favorable schedule next year. Georgia is going to be their toughest game, but outside of that game, they will probably be favorites in the rest of their games. I will be doing my schedule prediction for this Ole Miss team at some point this offseason. I don't know when, but I have a lot of schedules to predict. And I will be starting them in a couple days, so be sure to tune in for my predictions, and I'm really excited to start them. The first schedules I will be predicting will be Group of 5 teams, but after that, I'll be predicting every Power 5 schedule along with Notre Dame. I guess I should say Power 4 because the Pac-12 is officially non-existent. But don't worry, I'll still do predictions for Oregon State and Washington State if you still want to consider the Pac-2 a conference. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I figured I would talk about this Ole Miss team because how can I not talk about them? And this was a fun video. But let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you will love this channel because we upload daily college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing. But that's going to do it, guys, and peace out.